mortgage is a scam. I mean, especially if you're Kenyan, that thing doesn't work here. It's not a thing that is so popular and synonymous with people. Nah, mortgage is not a thing. By the way, guess what? This is a yesterday's newspaper. Okay? This is what it says. It's only 4% of Kenyan can afford a mortgage of 10 million and above. 10 million in terms of USD. That is around 80 something thousand Kenyan shilling, or rather 80 something thousand in terms of the USD. And they're saying it is only 4% of Kenyan who can afford a mortgage. You know why I'm saying that mortgage is a scam in Kenya? It's not a scam in the sense that you will invest and lose, but it has come in the sense that if you look at the percentages in terms of the interest, can you imagine a bank giving you a mortgage at around 14%? It is around 14 point something percent. You wonder now on a very 14.9%. Can you imagine that? And that mortgage, it goes for around 11 years. It is the only one particular institution in Kenya called KMRC that is actually giving you at around 9.5%. And guess what? That is a subsidized Kenya mortgage refinancing company called the KMRC rate at a 9.5%. But the rest, they give you a very big... And the question is this. Let me ask a very simple question. Okay, I know you may say, okay, life is not about percentages and interest and what have you. But for those who, to them, it matters, let me ask a simple question. In Kenya, I was reading about the statistics as far as the real estate is concerned. It was appreciating at a rate of an average of 7%, 8%. That is the rate at which the real estate appreciates in Kenya. Or even the land itself, that's the rate at which it appreciates. Can you imagine you borrow to acquire that property that you're paying an interest of 14 point something percent, but it's appreciating at a rate of 7% or 8%. Ain't you shooting your foot? I mean, I was doing a simple mathematics. There's a guy whom I love watching called Kingori, Dr. Kingori in his shows. He said a very simple thing like, is it economically viable in Kenya to borrow money even to start a business? Because when you compare the interest at which you're paying after borrowing vis-a-vis the ROI, that is the return on investment, it is not adding up. You know, the cost of funds in Kenya, okay, has gone down. But you find that has not been replicated on the what? On the banks. The Central Bank of Kenya has been reducing interest rate all the way from I don't know what to now we are at around 9.25%. But you find by the banks are still clinging to 14%. Anyway, this is good, Joseph, in case you're watching me. I love to substantiate whatever I'm talking. This is a yesterday's newspaper called the Business Daily. I'm not advertising them. I'm not in partnership with them. But anyway, this is what it says. It's only 4% of Kenyan who can afford 10 million mortgage. Can you get these statistics? These statistics that are here are shocking. And this is a research that was done by Zamara and also the Center of Affordable Housing Finance in Africa, also abbreviated as CAHF, and Financial Sector Planning or Sector Depending Kenya, that is FSD, and it only shows that only 6,146 out of 141,205 pension scheme members can afford a house loan mortgage of more than 10 million. And that represents only 4.23% of Kenyans. Only 4.23% of Kenyans. You know, there is this introduction of the affordable housing by the government. And then you compare the affordability compared to that what the Kenyans want. For example, let me give you a very simple point here. You find that most of the people in Kenya, they prefer a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom because they are family oriented. But the affordable housing that they are being built by the government, and congratulations for the government, at least is better than having nothing, isn't it? But you find they are more into the affordability more than the what? Listen here what they say. This is because the affordable housing stock companies, primarily studio 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom unit, decide to meet affordability targets rather than the family requirements. And that's why I tell people, if you dare get into the mortgage industry in Kenya, it's a bit tricky, it's a murky waters. True, no matter how you're going to go ahead and explain it. If you talk about the language of mortgage in America, that's a whole of a different thing. And that's why you hear, for example, I usually watch a lot of American things as far as the mortgages, real estate is concerned. You find like you have the ability to like raise like 25,000 USD, you know, go get yourself a mortgage from a bank or whatever the institutions that they have. Say that house goes for 400,000 or whatever. And then you actually rent out that particular property, and then the bank gets a certain percentage. You mean that what you are renting, it is more than what they're asking for the mortgage, such that you can even borrow to invest, the bank gets their portion and you get your portion, and everyone is comfortable. In Kenya, you can't afford to do that. Okay, how many here you can tell me, you can go say to Westlands, you can go to Kilimani or Valavington or whatever, where they're selling those apartments of 2 bedrooms, say at around 10 million or 12 million. You go get a mortgage, say in a period of 11 years. For example, say if you go the bank's way, because it's very hard for KMRC to finance that, because probably you do not fall under the dynamics or the demographics of their targets. Again, I stand corrected. And then they give you, say, a period of 11 years, and then they charge you 14.5%. Then tell me how much the rent will generate. An average rent that will be generated in a 2-bedroom apartment in Westlands will be probably 100,000, or say 100, yeah, let's say at most 100,000 or even 90 something thousand. And then zoom in into, if you get a mortgage of 12 million, how much are you supposed to pay in a what? In a month. And then compare that what they ask you vis-a-vis what you generate from your rental income, and see whether you will find you are even in a situation whereby that what you're generating from rental income is not even enough to pay for that. And if it is, you're only left with 5,000. Now tell me, well, I'm not saying that 5,000 is a bad money. I mean, it's far much better than nothing, but it is not, for example, and I'm not talking about people who want to buy a home for them to live. If you buy to live, that's a whole different case. But here there is a caveat here. In Kenya, the law of mortgage says this. As per most of the banks, they prefer that when you take a mortgage, you're supposed to be left with at least a third of your cash to cater for your things. Now, for you to qualify for a mortgage of 10 million, you ought to part ways with approximately 100,000 each and every month. Where is it? More than 85, and can you imagine, you are supposed to part ways with at least 100,000 per month or something like that. Now, the point is this. If you have to part ways with an equivalent of 100,000 for a mortgage, therefore you should be earning not less than 420,000 in a month. Let me read you something here. This type alone will attract a monthly installment of at least, can you imagine this? CPK data shows that the average size of a mortgage is 9 million, which is a repayment period of 11 years with an interest rate of 14.9%. That's almost 15%. And you know, if you take a mortgage of 9 million that you're supposed to pay it in 11 years with an interest of 14.9%, you are likely to pay a monthly installment of at least 140,000. And based on the laws, and one would require a gross monthly salary in an excess of 420,000. Now tell me how many Kenyans are earning that salary of 420,000 in a month, if you go by these statistics. Guess what? More than 85% of Kenyans earn less than 100,000. More than 85% of Kenyans, they earn less than 100,000. That's why you find most of the Kenyans, they usually take a mortgage of around 3 million, 3.1, 3.5. And that's why they go to what? The KMRC. Why? Listen to these statistics. Under the subsidies of KMRC, the rate is at 9.5%. A household earning 100,000 per month, a household earning what? 100,000 per month. And remember, over 85%, they earn less than. So we are talking about less than 14% here, who earn 100,000 per month, can qualify for a mortgage of approximately 3.4 million, enough to purchase a typical affordable housing program unit. Because the affordable housing in Kenya, 3-bedroom is going for 3 million. Personally, I wish I made a video. I went to those affordable housing. I inquired them. I'm not reading on the AI. I went there. I saw it. I went in. I inquired everything. 3-bedroom, it cost approximately 3 million. Now, the question is this. What can we do? What's happening? And that's why mortgage in Kenya is a very thorny issue. It's a very tricky issue. But am I saying that the future is gloomy? No. In future, things can change. That's for sure. In Kenya, this is the arrangement we prefer and love. And that's why I always tell people, when you're consuming the westernized information on how the mortgages and what have you, please don't cut everything and truncate it here. It doesn't work. Some of things works there, it doesn't work here. That's why I find the only way people try to own their home here is by simply accumulating. For example, say somebody earns a salary of 70,000, which you must be very lucky in Kenya to earn that salary. And then after the expenses and what have you, say you are left with around 20,000. They prefer accumulating that money, say, in a circle. Are we together? Once they accumulate that money in a circle or their own personal savings, they get, say, around 500,000 Kenyan shilling after whichever the period it is. Then they go buy a parcel of land. Once they buy a parcel of land, of which is a little bit far from the cities, a land that is worth 400,000, that is 4,000 USD, is way far from the city. So it's not a place that you can buy and say that you're going to be living there and you track to, or you go to cities. It's a bit far. So the only way they try to earn or own a home that is a bit nearer to where they work is they actually go save in a circle. The typical way how Kenyans own home. You go save in a circle, then you borrow, you buy land, you pay that land, then it reaches to a certain point, you borrow again, you can buy off that loan, you pay the previous one, then you have a fresh new loan, say probably of 2 million or 2.5 million. Then you go do a simple perimeter wall, then you build yourself a home. Then that is how they own. Because Kenyans are trying to find a way of themselves owning a home. Because the issues of mortgage, yes, the KMRC is trying their best to make sure that is affordable. Also, the government is kicking in with this affordable housing and whatever. If you ask me, they try. Is it the best? They may not. If you ask an average Kenyan, is it an affordable thing? Still, to the government eyes, they say it is affordable. But one bedroom is going for 1 million or 1.1 million. I mean, not all the Kenyans will actually afford that. But anyway, I understand. They tell you, put aside a deposit of 55%, which is like 50,000, then you'll be paying the equivalent that you pay for your one bedroom somewhere. It's the same that you'll pay, but here you're paying to own. Are we together? Again, it depends on your view on that. Okay, I'm not a government representative. I'm only trying to make sure that I feed this information to you to see where things become a bit complicated. And there, default on these mortgages and these loans, the house is gone. Okay, we all know a case of a certain celebrity. I'm not going to mention the name. They have some issues as far as their house has been taken away and what have you. And not only, it's only, that is, you know why we know that? Because that person is a celebrity. I'm not going to mention any names here. That person is a celebrity. There are tens of thousands of Kenyans that are facing that particular issue. Them not being in a position. Can you imagine that kind of a mortgage? You take a mortgage of 9 million at a rate of 14.9%, which you're supposed to pay an average of 140,000 in a month because your salary is around that a particular amount of money. And then all of a sudden, you're not working. Then tell me what exactly will happen. The house is gone, plus all what you've actually deposited there. So it's a very thorny issue. It's a very complicated issue. And I really hope, I do not know what exactly will actually happen here, but that's my submission. Mortgages here in Kenya is a very, 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 very tricky thing that I can tell you, hey, if you want to go into it, be very careful on how you go about it. That is it, guys. Did I say it's a mortgage in the sense that you'll be scammed? Like you're going to lose your money? No, I said mathematically and financially, mortgages here in Kenya, it doesn't work. Maybe you have your own arrangement or how to own a home by virtue of you buying your own parcel of land somewhere. Or if you be comfortable with the affordable housing, then you can go that route. But you see, in Kenya, in African culture, unless people are changing, in African culture, you find that we are more into owning a secluded home somewhere with your own compound where you can put some few 3 or 4 chickens and something like that. So this vertical living in affordable housing may not resonate to most of the people unless you're living in the cities, unless you understand. For example, somebody like me, I can understand, hey, if you have the ability, you can take that mortgage, you can be paying that rent, then compared to how much you're renting out and you can be left with something. I'm seeing some people who are doing that. You know, you go, and it's just an average and normal person doing so. You know that they are wealthy people. They just go get that particular mortgage. They set aside that 50,000. They get that one bedroom. Probably that one bedroom you'll be paying, say, around 5,000 or 7,000. Then they rate it at 10,000 or 12,000. So they make that extra 5 or 6,000. Then the rest is actually paid to the government or something like that. Anyway, it's just a way of trying to make sure that at least, you know, you're smart and you're trying to make the money work for you. Either way, that's my message. Guys, see you in the next one. Don't forget, this is my number in case you need my services. You can shoot me or text on my WhatsApp.